You guys ready? I hereby call this meeting of the Norwood City Council to order. Please stand for the prayer and pledge of allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, as the body we congregate in this council chamber, pray for thy divine guidance, that we may do all things well, according to thy holy will. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Got it.
Mrs. Williams, please call the roll.
Mr. Bonsall?
Here.
Mr. Gabbard?
Here.
Mr. Geraci?
Here.
Mr. Kelch?
Here.
Mr. DiNardo?
Here.
Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am. Here.
All members present. Moving on to amendment of the agenda. I have several items this evening. The first, we're going to add item L3, ordinance recognizing the historical nature of Victory Park and Market House. Then we're going to add J2, that's the third reading of the bond issuance. Then we're going to add P2, a letter from Ron Murphy. P3, a letter from Susan Hinneka. And P4, a letter from Everett Green. May I have a motion? Mr. Kelch.
Motion to amend the agenda as read.
Motion to amend the agenda as read. Mr. Nardo.
A second, please.
Second. Any discussion? Mr. Kelch.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to note that item L3, there's been some discussions about misconception. This is an ordinance to take away equipment at the Victory Park. This isn't an ordinance to do that. It's actually an ordinance to kind of maintain Victory Park and have a partnership with the Veterans Association as well as our local American Post. So. Excuse me?
Steve, are you able to turn the volume up on the for the house, please?
Oh, I agree.
The man behind the golden door back there, he comes.
Test.
Thank you, sir. That's it. All right, thank you guys. My apologies. So item L3, there's been some misconceptions. It's not an ordinance that we're going to vote on to remove any equipment from Victory Park. It's an ordinance just solidifying, keeping what Victory Park is meant to be and building a partnership with the Veterans Association as well as the American Legion Post here in Norwood.
Thank you, Mr. Kelch. Any other discussion?
Test.
Never really had this issue.
Probably need everybody to pull their mics a little bit closer.
Or I think they're just talk loud in general. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
All right.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonsall?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye. Motion passes. Moving on to item F, minutes of previous meeting, May 21st, 2021, May 27th, 2021 special meeting, May 28th, 2021 special meeting. Mr. DiNardo.
I make a motion to accept these minutes, noting that it's May 25th for the first one.
The first one, what did I say? I'm sorry. May 25th.
May 25th, May 27th, May 28th.
Okay. Gotcha. Motion by Mr. DiNardo. May I have a second? Mr. Geraci.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bunzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item H, request to address council. I have quite a few this evening. Just want to let everyone know. I'll call your name. Please come forward to the podium, say your name and address, what you're going to talk about this evening. In front of you, you'll see a little monitor. You have 5 minutes. First is Pastor Sonny James.
Good evening, Pastor Sonny James, 1830 Hopkins Avenue, Norwood, Ohio. First and foremost, let us continue to pray for families that are still struggling and trying to make their ways back from COVID-19 and the awful pandemic. Second of all, folks, a lot of times I come and I stand before you, and there are many challenges made. Challenges made about some of the things that I stand for and what I don't stand for. I have said to each and every one of you on numerous occasions, it is a new day in Norwood, and I understand the complexities that come with that. But I've also said, and I've meant every word of it, over my dead body, literally, we are no longer in a position to just play the hush mouth game anymore. And each of you know there's nobody more knowledgeable about the inner workings of how we do things than the gentleman standing before you now. And oftentimes it's challenged of the validity, sincerity. But folks, let me just say for the record, and for all of the family members that are watching and listening, guys, we've got to get this thing together. I'm not standing here, nor do I ever stand here on my own. I only stand because people that think like me, and primarily may even look like me, have an issue with how we do things in Norwood, Ohio. Even recently, I met at the Wood, and one of our council members, Mr. Kelch, I said, if you don't believe me, there are 3 black people. Just randomly ask them, what do they think in this day of Norwood? He goes to the first young African-American young man and says, what do you think about Norwood? And he says, 3 letters. You can sum up what those 3 letters were. Guys, we're not talking about yesteryear. We're not talking about 40 years ago. We're talking about right now, today. You all want to push protocol, status quo. You all continue to allow a handful of residents to push their personal bias agendas to affect the lives of people that look like me. But yet, everybody says, well, Pastor James is only for the black people. That is not true. I am for the rights of every citizen in my city. I don't have to sit in that seat. In fact, some of you are in that seat because of me. Thank you very much. And some are no longer in these seats because of me. Thank you very much. It is time for us, when we recognize that we've made a mistake, and you have made a mistake. 2 weeks ago, I stood before you, and you all asked our law director, what could we do regarding a particular business that may have had problems. Let the one that sits in the seat now without any problems be the first to cast judgment. So what? The law director, I can assure you, after that night I personally went to Stoney's Pub. Personally. And nothing going on. I've asked council members, get the police tape. Get the cam of the conversation between the police officer and this wonderful, awesome business owner. When is the last time I get a ticket for you hearing me talk? Nonsense. If somebody's done something wrong, if I've shot somebody, lock me up. But don't go after black business owners that are trying to do the best they can. And law director, since that Tuesday, Not one incident. Everything that has been challenged has been addressed, modified, and not one incident. So my prayer, let's not let this thing go on and be nasty. Our city is not the richest city in the world if we haven't checked. Why not just stop and say, maybe we made a mistake. Maybe they made 1,000 mistakes. But can they change? Have you changed? Let's work together. If not, get ready, get ready, get ready. People are tired of being treated bad. And not just one black business owner. You'll hear from another tonight. They make some pretty doggone good steak sandwiches. I just ate one today. Guys, I see the clock. We've got to do better. Let's meet, let's talk, let's get this thing settled together as one people. God bless you all. You know how to reach me, 513-487-8843. Or stop by 1830 Hopkins Avenue. Knock on the door, but knock light. God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor James. Our next request to address council is Ty.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Ty Velez. I own AJ's Cheesesteaks. I've been a resident for Norwood for 8 years now. I've been a business owner in Norwood for approximately 2 years now. And in that particular time, one of the questions that's always asking me is why Norwood? I never knew the history of Norwood. I never knew that there was racial inequality in Norwood. I never knew that blacks back in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s were not welcome in Norwood. And so to this very day, if you ask anybody that knows me from the media, I've gone on TV and I've starkly defended Norwood and said that I have never been made to feel that I don't belong in Norwood because I'm black. I've never been made to feel that I don't belong in Norwood because I may have a criminal history. As in fact, the community of Norwood has embraced me up until a certain point. I have gone on record, not only to defend the law director, Chris, and some of the very same people in this very room that has been accused of being racist or committing racial bias against any kind of blacks that have come into this particular community. Now, my issue is that, do I have a clean record? No, I don't. I'll be the first to tell you, I do not. I was accused of something that didn't go nowhere, and I take responsibility for whatever it is that I do. But in this particular community, not only have I uplifted, I give money, I've raised money, I've brought notoriety, I've brought other people to the community that would never come. So when you look at this particular community right now, not only that, when COVID happened, what we did was that we hired one person every single day from Norwood. We gave them jobs, right? So that they can survive, at least pay a bill. So recently, one of the things that I have encountered is not just from the residents of Norwood, but from the city of Norwood. There's been something where I've been told that I can't serve in front of City Hall because I have a criminal record, or there was an accusation that was made against me, a false accusation that was made against me that was proven untrue. Now, I'm here to defend myself, to defend my reputation, to defend my business. Nobody goes and talks about how I'm investing in transitional housing, to address the homelessness, to address people that are getting out of prison. Nobody talks about how we raise money for schools, giveaway, free book bags, free food, these things. Nobody says how we go on TV and I defend Norwood as not being a city that you can't come to, a city that you can't raise a family in, that you can't raise a business in. But lately, I've been disgusted. I've been disgusted at the treatment, not just of my own business, but other black businesses in here. These people aren't in here for nothing. These people aren't sitting here because nobody is harassing them or bothering them or not making them to feel uncomfortable. Nobody in this particular area should be made to feel as if they don't belong in a city that says that, hey, we got out of that good old boys club. We don't do that. We don't do that things anymore. We have people in here that has embraced the black community. We want that. We want to bring businesses. I belong to a particular society that's always asking me, hey, is it okay to bring any black businesses in Norwood? What am I supposed to say when I sit up here? Am I supposed to lie and say, well, hey, no, I can't do that because Chris doesn't want black businesses in Norwood, which is not true? Am I supposed to say, hey, I can't do that because, hey, you know what? I have a criminal background and, you know, the city recently just sent me a letter saying that I can't serve on Food Truck Fridays after they invited me there from a particular time. Am I supposed to say that? No. So despite whatever letters that I've been given, I still continue to support the community. I still continue to give jobs. I still continue to build the community. So my thing is, I personally want to know, what is it that Norwood wants? What is it? What is it that you want us to do as a black community to embrace Norwood, to get out of that good old boys club, to say, hey, you know what? Norwood is not a race. They're not a racist, biased community. They're not somebody that doesn't allow black people into their community. They don't racially profile. The police department doesn't pull you over when you come in here. The police department is, as a matter of fact, they embrace you. The city council is willing to sit down and listen to you. But can I say that when we, as black business owners, gets letters and continues to get harassed by some of the very same people that said, hey, you know what? No, we're not racist. We're not doing that. How do we defend that? How do we stand up to that? How do we fight that? The only thing that we can do is sit here in front of you and express our concern. So I ask, if there's anything that we can do as a black community to help bring in and usher in a new era in Norwood, please let us know. My time is up. I apologize for going over. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Velez. Forgive me, I can't read this. Is it D. Smith?
Yeah.
How do you spell your name, your first name?
D-I-A-Z-L. Am I speaking directly? Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak, considering the many opportunities that awaits us every day. We're going to speak on the word character, personality. Something that I learned from an owner, a bar owner named Stoney. And that I may be a consumer, but I also come in and contribute because it's a good business. And I don't see no violence. I don't see no one going home with a broken bottle on their neck or head or a gunshot wound. You might hear music, but guess what? We come together, we don't even play loud music when we pull up anymore. And those that's doing it, that's not coming in Stoney's bar, making Stoney's bar look bad. And that's one of the complaints. Character. The lady that I'm representing right here, she feeds you for free. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of generosity. Pool table games are open. In Norwood, y'all part of America, and we learn from you guys to be a good businessman. But we're not into antisocial. We're into loving one another because the Creator, I'm a God-fearing man for one. We don't plan, the Creator do not plan for failure, so we don't plan for failure. We help one another out. We help you out. You party with our ladies, we party with your ladies. It's a beautiful life. This is America. When we marry, we respect one another in quality. We keep the generosity continue to flow. And when we're being harassed, we use our defense mechanism. We say, why are we being harassed? I'm part of a team. I'm a team player. There's no I in team. Personally, I'm self-employed. I'm saying again, I'm a God-fearing man. I love each and every one of you. But when a woman is going through some things which a man protects, why should she be going through some things that's assumptions? There's no facts. And so there, he say, she say, we know we don't. Can't nobody tell your story better than you. And that's why we're here. And life is beautiful. And continue to make it work together. And in your community, we know that Stoney's Bar probably been open since 1946. I don't know. Is that correct? I don't know. We have neighbors. I had a guy pull up. His moms had owned it 1996 and 97. She didn't have it too long. But she didn't have no problems. And now my question is, why are we being sabotaged? I'm a team player. Why are we being accused of things that's not hurting people? And why should she be out of business? Because she's an entrepreneur. Now, I went to school for 4 years at Wilmington College. I'm a risk taker. A few things about Dizelle Armando Smith. I'm a risk taker. I do things for other people for the satisfaction of how it makes me feel. I'm rarely bored. And I'm a peacemaker. And we're here to make peace. And there's no reason for any judgment on anyone, no depicting anyone. We're here, we're serious about business, because how can you raise a team or your family, which is the family, if there's no prejudice involved? We don't want no prejudice involved. And if you can accept honor, allegiance, respect, peace, and humility, humbleness, and kind and caring, that's what Stony Bar represents. And you guys take that, leave that, if you could, be humble, ponder on it. But that's just what happened. At the end of the day, there's no one getting hurt. Before she owned, there was bloodstains on the ground, you know. It was people standing behind her that's been there, but we don't know how many complaints they was giving those that was owning it. I don't know the information, but you guys got the information. Norwood is Norwood. I respect Norwood. I had a house in Norwood, you know. So thank you for having the opportunity to speak once again. Take everything into consideration. Dizelle Smith is speaking. My word counts. I'm not practicing recidivism. I'm trying to do the right thing. We work for us. We work for you. You know that. Respect. Respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Our next request to address council, Kderanard.
Hi, it's Kderanard, 5030 Stewart Park, Norwood, Ohio 45212. I'm here on behalf of Stoney's Bar. I recently started working there. I'm a single mother. Been a single mother since I was 20. I'm 29. I'll be 30 this year. I'm all about a home base or somewhere I feel I can forward my future, my son's future, continue to ground the foundation that I have, and somewhere I can feel comfortable doing it. So far, so great at Stoney's Bar. It has been very welcoming, very understanding, very uplifting, and where you want to go in life, wherever you want to go, and what you need and how someone can maneuver with you and work with you. And for me, being a single mom, that's just what things are about for me in life. It's about us being able to work together and understand where we are in life and how we can help each other continue to move forward. And so that's what this has done for me, and me being placed here. And so I don't necessarily have any complaints at all about Stoney's. I feel like everything it's neutral. I feel like if you come in and you choose to be in that space, that you will find that it's very welcoming. I feel like you will find that no one is against you. Everybody is necessarily for you and for the moments that you need, for the time that you are coming, which at any time that you would go to any other bar in any other place. So whatever someone has disliked about Stonies, I feel like it's balanced across the boards when it comes to bars or clubs or any type of situation in that manner that involves different people coming together. Ultimately, overall, it is something that more people can like and enjoy versus dislike and not enjoy. And that's more so what everything is about, where more people can benefit from for me. So that's what I have to say. If I can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mrs. Reese?
Hi everybody, my name is LaTaya. I'm also a bartender here at Stonies, and I'm very emotional having to stand here. I walked away from a job that I was at. It was a retail store. I was an assistant manager. I enjoyed it, but I didn't feel fulfilled. I felt like I wasn't doing enough there. So I had quit my job, and that week I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna try bartending. I really love people. I've been working in customer service since I was 15. I'm 30 now. And I love working with people. I love people just being, you know, feeling like they've served, or I'm feeling like I'm helping them to whatever it is they need help with. Like if they, for instance, if we working at the bar, they're coming in, they want to have a good time, and I'm just there to serve them a drink with a smile. So to think that you're taking, like, to have it taken away from me, we all went through COVID. That happened with everybody, and having to think about not having a job. My income supports 3 people. I have 2 daughters. I have a 2-year-old and I have a 6-year-old. And when I go to work, I feel safe. You know, like I said, like nobody is dying, no harm is being caused. I don't understand why it feels like we're being targeted. And I feel like my job is on the line. So not only is my job on the line, but my life. I feel like my life is on the line, right? Because this is how I provide for my children. I don't want to work in certain environments anymore. I walked away from my job for a reason, because I wanted to make sure every day that I was getting up, going to work, that I felt fulfilled, like I was doing something a bigger picture. And it might sound crazy, like, okay, well, you work at a bar, but I come across so many people, and so many people tell me, like, you know how I present them with a smile. I go to work happy every day, okay? I don't even live out here, right? I don't live out here, but I go to work and I'm happy and I feel safe. And I don't have a problem with Norwood. I've been living in Cincinnati all my whole life. I know about Norwood. I have heard about how this isn't the best place for black people, right? That it's racist out here. I have heard that. But I can't really say that I've experienced it until I started working here, and I'm kind of seeing how the cops are coming in. And I've been there before where they came, and I'm not for doing wrong. So if it's something that we need to do right, then please tell us that. You know, if it's too loud, okay, well, let us adjust the music, but don't threaten to take something away that I feel is not causing harm. Like, if music is the biggest thing, then, like I said, nobody's dying. We make sure the environment is safe. There's no weapons involved. We're just serving drinks and listening to music. I'm just asking that when you think about closing down a business, that you think about the people that depend on that business. Because it's huge for me. Because like I said, I've worked so many places. Like, I've had over 18 jobs. I'm very qualified. I've been to college. I've done a lot of things in my life, okay? And I'm telling you that coming to work here is fulfilling for me, that I'm not sad when I go to work. I'm not mad. I'm not one of those people that's going to go to work and I don't want to be there. I think that is the craziest thing ever, to go somewhere that you don't want to be. I don't want to do that, and I want to be here. So please just think about that when you're deciding whether or not you want to close a business down, and make sure this is really a business that is threatening our city. Like, is it really threatening Norwood? It can't be. There's no way it could be, because when I go to work, I'm there to serve everybody. I don't look at color. I don't look at none of that. I'm here to serve you. What is it that you need? if I can help you, if it's in my realm, let me get it for you. So I'm just asking that you take that in consideration. I'm sorry I'm so emotional. I'm very jittery and I'm jumpy, and I'm sorry because I'm also nervous and I wasn't expecting to even speak. But if it's gonna come down to like my job and how I take care of my children and the thing, I just want you all to understand that it's so much bigger than whatever idea it is that you might have about her business. Just know that it is providing a job for me, and I'm able to take care of my children, and I'm happy when I wake up. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next request to address council, Mr. Raymond McElroy.
How y'all doing this evening? Y'all be well and blessed. I address the council the same way too. My address is 1305 Ryland, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45237. I'm an employee of City of Cincinnati Traffic Control Tribe. I've been working for the City of Cincinnati since 1999. I've done everything, trash. Also my add in too though, my first job was right here in Norwood. I worked at Salvation Army. That should tell you how old I am. I'm gonna share with y'all. I'm 48. I'm here to represent this establishment and this lovely lady right here that, the generosity is unbelievable. When I get off of work, the first thing I want to do is check in at home. I want to go over here. I know she got some free food over here because it's hard. It's hard out here. And I get up every day and I hang up signs. I hang up traffic. Anything got something to do with traffic, I pave streets and everything. And also want to add too, y'all should put in a petition to fix these streets because these streets been messed up for a long time too. And I pave and I do a lot of work. I work hard. And when I come over into this lady's establishment, she made me feel real good. Real good. I'm also a general contractor too as well. I've done a lot of work over here in Norwood. And I ain't done. Never done painting a picture, none of that. Also I want to add too, yes we know it's racism. Hey, guess what? Then I look to the other side, I got about, they growing, 70, how would you say, Caucasians in my family, and I love them. My grandma taught me how to love them. My family taught me how to love them. And my uncle, Samuel McElroy, he resigned right here in Norwood and retired for the City of Cincinnati too as well. Ever since I've been coming over to that bar, that community bar, it's like Cheers. Everybody loves Cheers. There's no problem. I myself keep my eye out on, I keep an eye out on how cars is parked, so it won't be no problem, so the police won't, come around. I just want to also add this too, the Pledge of Allegiance. I remember that in first grade, I'm gonna take that back. Preschool. In one nation we must stand. Let's not be divided. We all went through some trouble. In this nation, Norwood is in this nation. The city of Cincinnati is in this nation. The state of Ohio is in this nation. And we all governed by the government that's over this nation. I don't see no problem with this lady running a business. She's providing. I'm talking about, I done seen some people come in there, need bus fare, need anything. She provided. Ain't no harm being done to nobody. Cars is parked correctly. The music is she's constantly worried about the music being up loud. She's constantly turning the music down. Everybody come outside and they just go to their car and they go home. This is a place where everybody can come and have a little fun. I see different nationalities coming there, but I don't see the complainants coming there. If the complainants come in there and see what's going on, and they'll have a good time. They'll see that somebody might can fix y'all back porch. Somebody might can do y'all roof. Because like I said, I am a general contractor, and I've been licensed and I went to school for this. You might find a lot. And with that, I'll close.
Thank you. Next request to address council, Aaron Cornett.
How's everybody? Good, right? All right. I live in the city of Cincinnati, 3310 Trimble Avenue. And basically, I've been friends with the owner of Stoney's for about 15 years now. She's one of the greatest persons I've ever met. She gets along with everybody. I'm quite sure that if there are any problems with what's going on, if she's approached with the problem, she will fix it. She just needs an opportunity. No one knows when someone is stepping on their toes unless they're aware of it. This is her livelihood. The people that come to her bar, they come there to relax. They come there for the family atmosphere. She has multiple people in her family from all nationalities, as well as all of us. Ever since I was a little kid growing up, Norwood was one of the worstest neighborhoods ever. I've been aided in this community, okay? But it's come a long way now. I see all nationalities here now, even Mexicans, everybody. So I'm just here to basically say, give her an opportunity to straighten out whatever the situation is. She does not want to be a hindrance, a disturbance, or a burden to Norwood. She's a business, she's paying taxes, and she's bringing money into Norwood, okay? And so basically I just want to say a few words on her behalf, just to tell you guys, this lady, I've watched her give the shirt off her back literally to people who are on the streets with nothing, you know? And so therefore, I don't know what problem that someone has with her, but I'm quite sure if, like I said, just bring them up and address them, and so they can be addressed. And then let's move on. We're all a family now. We're coming out of this COVID-19. Just to survive, that is a blessing if you're still alive. That's right. And here we are, you know, going in a situation where now someone is trying, she's been a struggle for her just to keep her establishment open through this all anyway. This has put a financial strain on her and her family. And she's still there with the smile on her face every day. I've been in there. I've seen different nationalities come in there. They're treated with respect and love. So I'm just here to say, give her a chance, tell her what she needs to do, but please do not shut her down. That's all I want to say, and thank you very much for your time, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Cornett. Our next request, and I can't read the first name, but the last name is Washington. Just state your name, please. Thank you.
My name is Jay Washington. My address is 1167 Timberland Drive in Woodlawn, Ohio. Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to speak. Community is defined, there are several definitions for community, but one I find particularly accurate is a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common interests, attitudes, and goals. Many of us here today represent the community of Norwood, whether we live here or not. Community is a place where we are not perfect, but purposeful. As a longtime Cincinnati resident, one of the many things I was proud of is that we are not perfect in the city, but we are purposeful. History is something that we not only live through, but we are obligated to learn from. As a member of this community, I recognize that there is a lot of history that we are all working through. Some of it is seen as trauma. Some of it is seen as healing and growth. As an economic contributor to this city and to this country, I really feel there's an obligation that we all acknowledge that there's a baseline trauma here that needs to be addressed so that we can move forward in healing, so that we can provide an economic growth and a bright future for the community that which we serve. I, as a longtime Cincinnati resident, also remember the legacy of Norwood. I've lived here most of my life, but for the past 5 years, I've traveled the country blessed with the opportunity through employment that allows me to work remotely and see a lot of cities and the levels of growth and development that they have accordingly. We are not the only city that struggles. We're not the only city that deals with race and economic issues, but we are a city that has an opportunity to lead by example. Through my travels, one thing that has always returned me home is this real reverence for what Cincinnati represents. And Norwood, as I speak of Cincinnati, Norwood is obviously an active community within Cincinnati. But one of the things that I've been proud of is a sense of practicality that's not found everywhere. Trust me. There's a sense of innovation here and economic tenacity that, again, is not found everywhere. But that tenacity is not limited to a certain racial demographic. There was the addressing of bias. There's unconscious and conscious bias. All of us have it. And whether that bias is based on race, gender, class, sexual orientation, economic status, I think it's really important to first acknowledge that we all have it, and then be active participants in countering the narrative of it. I arrived here 5 days ago, visiting family, getting a feel for the Cincinnati that I miss, Graders, Skyline, Kroger, La Rosa. I arrived at Stoney's today, excited to see a community member that I've known for decades, making her way, contributing actively into a community that, again, the past that I know of this community has not been as gracious and kind to the contributions of folks that look like me. In hearing of this hearing today, I was not only disheartened and saddened, but there was a sense of deja vu that was pretty, again, discouraging. Because for me, Cincinnati and Norwood has a lot of what the rest of the world is actually looking for. An opportunity to be the change that we want to see. I am extremely aware of my buying power as a conscious consumer. I intentionally support and patronize places that represent the ethics, the morals, the social impact that I find important and that I teach my children and my community at large. You have the opportunity to be the change that we want to see. I want to support neighborhoods like Norwood. I want to be able to speak proudly as I travel the country about what my city is doing to change the narrative. It saddens me that a few community members who can't get beyond their bias are dictating how we move forward as a community. There's money to be made. There's progress to be made. There's a future to be made. And you can lead that. Don't deny small business the opportunity to rise from the proverbial ashes. Allow them to be what they've always been for this country, the backbone. I appreciate you and your time.
Thank you. Our next request to address council, just put their first name, is Jamie.
When I say my people, I want y'all to tell me here, my people. Here. My people. Here. That's what's up. My name is Jamie. A lot of people in this building knows me as J Funk. I'm actually an artist. I met my sister Fire. It's been over like 20 years now. It's been like 20 years. But starting off, I would like to ask the council by raising hands. Have any of y'all been to Stoney's Pub? What y'all experience is like? What you think?
Well, this is the request to address council.
I'm okay. Then, hey, I'll back up. I was getting to a point, but I wanted to let y'all know these young gentlemen. They said they've been to Stoney's Pub. I guarantee you they can't give y'all nothing negative but love and support that they've seen from my sister. That's what she do, man. Like really, like it's very hurtful seeing a young girl come up here and shed tears that this is what she does to feed her kids, to take care of her home. Y'all really are not coming here to start any type of negative mindset for y'all to look at us wrong. But from what I know about Stoney, she's definitely been a sister, somebody that has shown me so much compassion, so much support through the industries of the companies and the businesses that I've started. Now, I don't have a business here in Norwood, but I do have one in Oakland. And I live in the Madisonville, Oakley area. And as y'all see, those changes are happening over there as well. But I don't want to talk the whole 5 minutes. I just wanted to say and just show my love to my sister and be here to support. And y'all, just give her a chance. And if it's something wrong that needs to be fixed, she'll fix it. I've heard her reiterate to every customer that has came in here since the last 2 weeks. And when we came to this last meeting, to hear you guys on y'all votes to take away her bar, the only thing that we could do is just stick together as a team and know we have to teach each other, speak to each other, and let each other know, like, respect her bar, respect the city of Norwood, and y'all carry yourself as adults should. If you're gonna get out and drink accordingly, but everybody gets home safely. It's never no drama, no fights, no shooting, no killing. It's just all positive and love, man. So that's all I want to say to y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next request to address council, Bertha Davis.
My name is Bertha Davis, 12039 Timberlake Avenue. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and the folks are glad you came. You want to be where you can see troubles are all the same. You want to go where everybody knows your name. And I know I just dated myself with that song and knowing all the lyrics. All right. But I want you to know that as a young person, when I watched that show, I thought, man, that'd be so cool. I walk into a club with boys, they'd be like, Bertha! And have a seat. I want that so bad, I thought that'll never happen to me. And if you knew my mama, she would tell you it wouldn't either because she ain't let me go out. That's Stoney's. That's Stoney's real life. When I watch Cheers, I don't know that I ever saw a black person walk up in there. But I still like the show. But guess what? I could walk into Stoney's. Hey, Bertha, I just want to be a minute. I'm just coming in for a minute in a place that has been said where you're comfortable. You're welcome. And it's a business that is beginning to thrive in a city that has a checkered past. Together we can patch up that checkered past. I have memories, fond memories of going to the Fun Factory. That was a place where I felt welcome on a bumpy wooden floor in a community. I was sad to see it close. But I was so happy that Stoney's offered a new chapter for the city of Norwood. And you can say, well, you're not a resident here, so what you talking for? But I'm a visitor, I'm a guest. And also I can speak about you. I've worked for the same Fortune 100 company in Cincinnati, Ohio for 31 plus years. In that company, I've made referrals to individuals looking for rental property. Check out Norwood. As interns and new hires have come to the city, I said, check out Norwood. You're looking for a centrally located city next to our multiple office buildings. Check out Norwood. Well, I heard Norwood, black people ain't, maybe not. I said, maybe so. Let me give you a couple of examples of minority-owned businesses. And why don't you be a part of the beginning? Make the investment with your dollar and stop talking with your mouth. But don't make me a liar. Don't make me a liar, please. Make it so that it's true when I tell these interns, new hires, people sitting next to me, my family drive. And let me tell you, I live north, and I drive all the way in. I drive all the way in. I make it because it's worth the trip. I think that's the saying too. Some cars worth the trip, worth the drive. It's that, because it's a family. And also, I mentioned I gave my age a little bit and the years of service in the company, but you know what that means? It's almost retirement time. And guess what? Guess what happens in retirement? I start my second career, which is investment properties and investing in small businesses. The 31 years that I have invested and my profit sharing that's blowing up, I'm ready to reseed. But I want to reseed where it's going to grow. That's right. I want to reseed where people can reseed love. Right. Where people can receive a welcomeness. Where people can receive and start to practice out and fighting against racism and hatred in ourselves against the conscious and the unconscious bias. It's about time. Let us start somewhere. Let us start small. We don't have to change the world. We don't have to change the whole city of Norwood. We could change things right here, right now, today, by helping this young woman and this young man as they look to help other kind of people that they're touching. So let us, as has been said, let us come together. Let us work together. Let us manage the differences through conversations. Because I know there are problems. I'm not trying to paint a rosy picture and say, there's nothing wrong with Stonies. Not trying to say that. I'm acknowledging that there are challenges. But I want to give equal acknowledgement that there are solutions. And I bet with the diversity in this room and the diversity of thinking, the diversity of skills, the diversity of experiences, we can get it done, y'all. Yeah. We can get it done. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next request to address council, Alexandria Davis Harris.
Good afternoon. I'd first like to say that I'm a little embarrassed by my mom for singing that tune. But again, my name is Alexandria Davis Harris, and I'm here in support of the Black-owned businesses, specifically Stoney's Pub. I moved to the city of Norwood back in May of last year at 4026 Burwood Avenue. Although I recently relocated to another neighborhood, for the time that I was here, one of my favorite aspects of the city of Norwood was Stoney's Pub. And it was not just because of the drinks. It was because I found peace in knowing that I lived in an area that supported people that looked like me, or so I thought. Stoney's Pub is not just any bar. It's the first and only female Black-owned bar in Norwood. To shut down Stoney's Pub is an attempt to erase Black history in the making. So regardless of the historical Black history of this bar, I understand it's about the money too, right? So let's appeal to that. Ultimately, it is a business that brings revenue, that brings income, that brings residents, that brings jobs, and that brings fun and a safe place for the Norwood community and beyond to gather. All of that benefits the city of Norwood. Yet, Stoney's has been the victim, okay? Let's be clear, it is the victim here. It has been the victim of harassment, theft, racial profiling, discrimination, and persecution. Despite that mistreatment, Stoney's Pub has shown kindness, okay? Kindness to the surrounding community, and it has taken the necessary steps to mitigate all of the noise and complaints that it has received. So there is a zero basis for the negative allegations that have been made against Stoney's Pub, and I'm sure any of the Black-owned businesses here. So rather than punish, let's resolve. Do not let a few nights of noise silence Stoney's Pub forever. Thank you.
Thank you. Next request to address council, Leah McBride.
Good evening, council members. My name is Leah McBride. First off, I want to say how jealous I am of some of your tans. You're darker than I am. Congratulations. Secondly, I would like to say that I'm a college graduate. I got my undergrads in criminal justice and political science. I did 2 years of law school at Chase, law school at NKU, and decided to be a stand-up comic, and yes, it's paying off very well. Next. Thank you. However, when I was in school and I was right about to get my degree, I was driving down Montgomery Road, and for the record, I was raised in Evanston, Ruth Avenue, and I remember as a child, as soon as we crossed those railroad tracks, we knew we were going to have to fight. But when y'all crossed them railroad tracks, y'all had to fight too. But I just want to say, that was back in the 80s. I'm 47. I have no problem saying what my age is. 47 years old. I don't have any children, but I have my nieces and nephews all the time. Take you to 2006, I'm coming down Montgomery Road to go to McDonald's, or whatever that was down there. One of your officers who was in his car is doing this road rage thing with me with a 5-year-old in the passenger seat. He pulls alongside of me, calls me a black bitch and a nigger. Yeah, he did. And then he pulled in front of me and kept slamming on his brakes, trying to get me to hit him. So I called the police. The police come, guns drawn. Mind you, my 5-year-old niece is in the seat. And they have guns drawn, and I don't even have a record until that day. They arrest me. They tried to get my niece taken for 241 kids, but God allowed my brother-in-law to ride past, and he got her. My car was right on the corner of Walgreens. They take me to the police station, charged me $160 to tow my car around the corner. The surprise was when they got me in the back, and they didn't realize they had an educated black woman that actually read books while I was going to school. And I told them the statutes and the violations that had occurred. They were mad that I knew more about the law than they did. They didn't even know what the ORC was. 2 of your officers did not even know that the Ohio Revised Code, which is the book that they get to write all of the crimes with the little numbers, didn't even know it. Imagine that. However, I sat there and took all the abuse and disrespect, and wouldn't you know, the very officer that was in civilian clothes in his car comes walking in the police station and says and taunts me, so who's bad now? I said, oh, I still am, because you got grandfathered into the police station. You don't have a degree. I'm still bad. I go to court. And coming here just reminded me, I got to get that disorderly conduct expunged off my record. I'm tired of explaining that in job interviews. But my point is this. Yeah, that could have changed my whole life. Can you imagine that I wouldn't have been able to go to law school or anything? And you have law-abiding citizens standing up here. And one of my baby sister that I raised and as my daughter passed away. I buried her. My baby sister, in February, and misfired. Out of all the people, because I do stand-up comedy, everybody loves to tag me and everything on Facebook. But when my sister died, this woman reached out to me. She's let me have a few comedy shows at her venue. I want to tell you something. Every time I've been there, and I don't even like going to clubs, obviously because I'm there all the time to perform. I do feel welcome there. And they do have something for you to eat there, so in case someone would be there over inebriated, they make you put something on your stomach. Like, this really is a community. Like, I just want to tell you, you see how light I am? I am so tired. Norwood gave me PTSD. I only come to Norwood because of her bar. That's how much I love her. But you're looking at someone that's an upstanding citizen. I'm sure you all gonna look my name up. Look it up. And guess what? The only thing on my record is disorderly conduct 2006 in Norwood. And ain't nothing disorderly about me but my mouth. But I will say for the record, if you all are Christians or whatever your beliefs may be, if you are even a spiritual being and you have any faith in God, understand that we are the oppressed and we're tired. And we deserve respect. We deserve to be treated with dignity. I've never seen a fight, a gun, and I have never witnessed anything other than love at that bar. And also, if you know anything about the Bible, in closing, I would say this. I don't exactly remember the book and the passage, but it says, the last will be first, and the first shall be last. We're up. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Next request to address council, Michael Geis.
Good evening, council. I'm Michael Juiced, also Geist, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I live at 2130 Cathedral Avenue, about 6 doors down from Stoney's. When Faya told me that there was noise complaints, kind of was a little taken back by that. I've been to that bar several times, when it was Schaefer's and when obviously Stoney's now. And I walk by it frequently. I talk to Kevin all the time. He's the door guy right over there. I've stood out there for almost an hour sometimes with him, just talking, hanging out. It's really hard for me to believe that that bar is considered loud. Even when I've been outside of it, you can barely hear the music. So I don't really understand how people across the street or 2 blocks away can even hear that bar. Now, maybe the neighbors that live right next to it do. There also could be mitigation in between those properties to deaden the noise. You know, there are things like planting shrubs or something like that. There's insulation you can put in walls. There's acoustic panels you can put on buildings. Do we have decimal readings from that location? Do we actually know how loud this music is? Do we? Is there actual evidence? Or is this just an opinion? It's really easy to just come up with, oh, I don't like the noise. Okay. Do you actually have decibel readings? We could get them. And we could fine-tune the volume so it doesn't exceed whatever's making somebody uncomfortable. It's just a, practical way to fix the problem. Just sound, right? I mean, the cicadas in the trees are making about 90 to 100 decibels, right? 90 to 100 decibels just in one tree. Are you guys getting cops called on you? I highly doubt Stoney's is making that much noise. And for the record, there is some of the noise that's coming from the cars. Is that one of those cars? Is it a red Tahoe? Because I can tell you who that is. He's my neighbor. He lives across the street from me. And he's been told hundreds of times to cut his bass off when he enters Cathedral. And you know where he cuts it off? Right near Stoney's. So, and his bass rumbles houses. Okay? So, is that car in that equation? Has that ever been brought up? I don't know. Just for the record, if that car is part of it, that has nothing to do with Stoney's. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next request to address council. I can't read your handwriting, I apologize. Is it F-I-Y-A? Via?
Good evening, council. Good evening, everybody. Thank you on my behalf. I want to say first, it is quite, if I can address them first. Humble. I remember you. Good. I do remember you. I just want to say that all the wonderful things that everyone said about me is so true. And I wish that they could come up here and just say it again one more time and make sure that somebody recorded this because I'm loving it. Unfortunately, this is not like an award I'm standing up here for. This is me fighting for a business family and friends supported me and believed in me. I've been doing this since 2006 as far as bartending. I worked as hard as some of the girls that I have on my team, and before I saw me being a manager, somebody believed in me to be a manager because I always believed that everything I did to work hard. I always believed in to treat somebody the way that I would want to be treated. I get on my bartenders for that. People come into bars because they have whatever going on and they want to relax. And I want to make sure that we show them that they can when they're coming in. I was an artist. So yeah, I can be a little turned up at times. If certain music comes on, we definitely dance, we have a good time. I do not mean to offend anybody. If there is an issue, I definitely address it. I have certain people in particular that I know have a problem that are way closer than the noise ordinance allows. 5 feet and 50 feet is a big difference. And I have tried to adjust people that are 5 feet away from me. I have a neighbor behind me the same distance. And I go ask her if she has any complaints. She has my number. Anybody around me, they have contact. Call me before you call the police, because at the beginning and end of the day, there are serious crimes going on, and I'm sure within Norwood, and they shouldn't have to be bothered or harassed. Because to be honest, the police are being harassed to harass me, and if they don't, and they have also said that if they don't cite me, that they have to hear it from whoever it is across the street or next to me complaining. That's not justice. That's not even fair. And the fact that I don't even get this opportunity before you vote for me, I don't even get the respect of a notification that, hey, we're going to do a vote. In the same way, it was a council meeting. I wasn't there because I was working. I was actually, and if I would have known, I addressed residents, I addressed everybody. I have a resident that's the same distance who's willing to come and speak on my behalf at court, here, wherever. I have residents. Probably more than is complaining, I have more residents that are in favor of me and what I'm trying to do. Every time I'm trying to build good business, I have 4 or 5 cops pulling up for a noise complaint, not a fight. Like, where is that? Any problem that anyone has, I am willing to address. I am willing to change. I am willing. I have done it. I went and gave my neighbor flowers for Mother's Day. They were on my door with a note saying, all we want is peace and quiet. If I'm not trying to create peace, then what is? Giving something that's a gesture, a peace treaty back. And my mother, I give them to her and she says they smell like pee. A neighbor going around feeling like I have my security clean up from blocks beyond me. I went to council meetings before anybody was in there complaining. I was there. The little black lady that was quiet in the back, that was me. Seeing what was going on before I even purchased the bar. Because I care about community. Talking to him about a back to school because I have a neighbor in school. I can't contribute if I'm getting blocked. I'm targeted. I'm literally being blocked and targeted. I could drive by the Wood Bar, all of these bars, all the way damn near to Hyde Park. We know what's going on, but we can't allow what's going on. I'll say this. Let me close it with the Pledge of Allegiance. And when we're standing up and we're saying that, we have to mean it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next request to address council is Steve Jesse.
Good evening. My name is Master Sergeant Steve Jesse, U.S. Army retired. I'm a lifelong resident of Norwood that makes 62 years. My current address is 4158 Webster Avenue, Norwood, Ohio. I am here tonight with members of American Legion Post 123 and Victory Park Vets. Both organizations have furnished the council with letters to be read at your convenience. Our purpose for being here is to make it well understood that the proposed plans to change Victory Park to include altering or removing portions of the Veterans Memorial are particularly dismaying to us. I don't know if you understand how complicated it's going to be to move an M60A3 main battle tank, but it's not going to be a picnic. It's going to be awfully pricey. The wall containing the names of 140-some Norwood service persons who gave their life for liberty needs to stay where it is. The overall drawing of the park proposal looks great, but I don't think it requires the moving of our memorial. There's a whole lot of veterans in Norwood who would be very, very troubled by that. And we just want to make it absolutely clear that there are those of us in Norwood who want at least that portion of the park left as it is. It's very important to a lot of us. I've got bricks around that tank from my grandfather, my father, myself, my nephew, soon to be my grandson. Those bricks around that tank anchor us to this community, and we don't want to see our memorial altered in any way, shape, or form. The overall plans look great. There's plenty of room back there. You're going to tear down the old safety lane and alter that, that's fine. That gives you plenty of room to do other things. But it doesn't require the removing of any of our veterans' memorial. And we're hoping that the council will see it our way and not alter our memorial. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jesse. Moving on to item J, third reading of ordinance and resolutions. J1, ordinance repealing ordinance number 2-2011, which had adopted section 15102 titled Application Fees of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Norwood, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Bonzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that we have the third reading of the ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Bonzel to have the third reading. May I have a second? Mr. Thompson.
Second that.
Any discussion? Mr. Geraci.
This is now the third meeting with this ordinance, and the first time that I asked for the first reading, it was because I needed better data from our safety service director, which I have not seen. And for me to move forward with this ordinance, I'd like to see the data that I requested, because I don't think I can support this ordinance to move forward without that data. This is a data-driven council. That's all we do. We look at data, we look at numbers, we look at statistics, and we make our decisions based on that. Honestly, I can't move forward right now with this one. I don't agree with moving forward with this one until the data comes in.
Thank you, Mr. Geraci. Anyone else? Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bunzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
No.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting. We have 6 ayes, 1 no. The motion passes. Moving on to item, I'm sorry, forgive me.
Ordinance repealing ordinance number 2-211, which had adopted section 151.02 titled Application Fees of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Norwood, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. Bonzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that we pass the ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Bonzel to pass the ordinance. May I have a second? Mr. DiNardo.
I'll second that, please.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
No.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting. We have 6 ayes, 1 no. The ordinance passes. Moving on to item, Mr. Bonzel.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I would actually make a motion that we remove item J2 from the agenda. The law department's clarified that we are not ready to pass that yet. So if we could remove it from the agenda, then have the option to add it to a future meeting.
So we have a motion by Mr. Bonzel to remove item J2.
getting it run before, yeah. Don't pass it tonight.
Mr. Donovan, please. Second.
Yes, please.
Discussion. Any discussion?
Yeah. Is there any driving force you just need time to redo, to rewrite it?
Thank you, Mr. President. We're waiting on the state to sign off on going through this. We're under fiscal emergency, so we want to make sure the state's on board before we do it, and that's not been lined up yet. I spoke with Patrick Woodside, our bond counsel.
Yes.
It was exactly at 7:30, and he said, no, don't pass it tonight. We'll hold off until we get that all squared away.
Okay. I just thought we had been told that we were good, but I guess that was the commission, not the state, or those two separate things? Okay, it doesn't. If it's not time sensitive and you're telling me, then fine.
Mr. Bonzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just a question to Mr. Moore. So is there any other reason besides the perceived, the State Supervision Commission or the Financial Supervision Commission having to approve it? Is that the only reason that you would not want this passed tonight?
I really don't know, but that's the one because I thought that the idea 2 weeks ago was, as I recall, 2 weeks ago was, we're going to table it till the next meeting, and whatever it is should be cleared up by then, and then we should pass it. And so tonight, when we came in, I said, that's right, there's that. Should that be back on the agenda? Mr. Miracle asked the question, I think it was. And so I was, it should be, but then I called, and Mr. Woodside said, no. The reason he gave me was, we're waiting on confirmation from the state that it's okay to move forward with it. There may be other reasons, I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Mayor.
Emails that I received said that the state auditor's office was fine with it, and that Anna Mary had even sent an email saying it has nothing to do with adding debt structure, it's reducing debt, and that we can do that. That's not the email that I got on it.
You know what, never mind.
Mr. Darno?
I was going to say, is there any harm in moving forward? Because I saw the same thing that you forwarded to us. But at the end of the day, if the expert in the House is telling us to hold off, then that's probably best to hold off, I suppose.
Mr. Bonzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I was just curious if, again, this is a really important ordinance because, again, it's going to reduce the future debt obligations from that TIF. So is there any way to get confirmation that there's anything else he's waiting on besides the Financial Recovery Commission? The state is a big entity, so there could be something else, but it could just be that Financial Recovery Commission. From my standpoint, from what I've heard, that's cleared. That's good to go.
You could move it to later in the agenda and give me a chance to call him and see if I can answer.
Okay, yeah.
That's all I can do, so.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Okay, great.
Your name is speak up, we can't hear you.
We're all trying to figure out
So,
Mr. Bonzo.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So I would just recommend that we go ahead and just move forward with this motion, and if we are able to pass it later with Patrick, if he says we can, then that's the attorney, the bond attorney. Then we can just add it right back to the agenda at a later time.
You mean later today?
Yeah, later today. Yeah, if he finds out. So.
Thank you, Mr. Bonzo.
I will hold my second.
You good?
Yep.
So we'll move forward?
Yes, please.
Mrs. Williams, please call the roll.
And to confirm, this is for the third reading?
No,
Yeah.
this is.
Okay.
No, this is to remove it from the agenda.
That's what I thought it was to motion to remove.
Yeah, motion to remove from the agenda.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right. Mr. Bonzo?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item K2, second reading of ordinances and resolutions. K1, ordinance approving a zone change from the heavy manufacturing M2 use classification zoning district to the general business district, GBD use classification zoning district with the parcels identified by the Hamilton County Auditor as 2699 Edmondson Road, parcel 651-0041-0115-00 and 651-0041-0381-00. Mr. DiNardo.
Make a motion that we have the second reading.
Motion by Mr. DiNardo to have the second reading. May I have a second? Mr. Braden? Second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bunzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. May we have the second reading?
Ordinance approving a zone change from the heavy manufacturing M2 use classification zoning district to the general business district GBD use classification zoning district for the parcels identified by the Hamilton County Auditor as 2699 Edmondson Road, parcels 651-004-1-0115-00 and 651-0041-0381-00.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Moving on to item K2, ordinance approving a zone change from the heavy manufacturing M2 use classification zoning district to the general business district GBD use classification zoning district for the parcel identified by the Hamilton County Auditor as 2692 Madison Road, parcel 651-0041-0228-00. Mr. Thompson.
Move we have the second reading of this ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Thompson, have the second reading. Mr. Braden.
Second.
Second by Mr. Braden. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bunzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
All members present voting aye. Motion passes. May we have the second reading?
Ordinance approving a zone change from the heavy manufacturing M2 use classification zoning district to the general business district GBD use classification zoning district for the parcel identified by the Hamilton County Auditor as 2692 Madison Road, parcel 651-004-1-0228-00.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Moving on to item L1, introductory reading of ordinances. L1, ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Norwood, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Mr. DiNardo.
I would like to have a motion for all three readings.
Motion by Mr. DiNardo to have all three readings. May I have a second? Mr. Geraci.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mr. Bonzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I would, personally, I would encourage the council to kind of go slow on this. We've had instances in the past where the city will update their codified ordinances in order to account for some specific situation, and then the state will change that same kind of that same ordinance, the state version of it. We adopt the state version and we lose the special version that we have for whatever specific situation. So I guess I'd have a question to the law director. Are any of these, I mean, are we basically just copying what the state has adopted, and is there a chance that that could happen again?
Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's possible. It's much less likely. This is the kind of thing that's supposed to happen every year. And if there are distinctions in our version of the code, then the company that we use to do this will recognize those. The one time when we had an issue was when we did, I think it was like 12 years worth all at once. And there was just a lot to look at. I personally have not gone through and looked at all the changes in this. I don't know if the law department has. If you wanted to hold off and give us a chance to do that, to double check everything, then we probably could. I'm not sure exactly what all the codes are. They tend to be really, a lot of them tend to be minor things that just, oh, we have to change this reference to some other thing throughout, but the state can do things. And I'm not sure there have been any major overhauls of these on the state level. But if you really want to be careful and wait, we can kind of go through and take a look.
Mr. Bonzo.
Yeah, I personally believe it would be prudent to do that. I can just think of at least one specific ordinance where we had changed how people riding a bicycle kind of interact with stop signs, essentially. And, you know, I would kind of worry if that we're not checking to make sure that, because our ordinance definitely doesn't reflect what the state has on that. And so I would want to make sure that we are not eliminating what this council did last year when we passed that. So personally, I think 2 readings might be more prudent, and I'd support that, but I wouldn't support 3 readings tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonzel. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor by Mr. DiNardo and second by Mr. Geraci is to have all 3 readings. Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzel?
No.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
No.
Mr. Braden? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Thompson, what was that? No? Okay. And then Mr. Braden?
No.
All members present, we have 4 yeses, 3 nos. We have to have 6, so the motion fails. Mr. Bonzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that we have the first and second readings of ordinance L1.
Motion by Mr. Bonzel to have the first and second reading. Do I have a second? Mr. Braden?
Sure. Second.
Second by Mr. Braden. Any discussion? Mr. Geraci.
Sure, I'll speak up now. Since I guess nobody realizes these are just updates that we're pushing to our system. That's all we're doing. I'm not understanding why we're moving this to another meeting and to keep this going further and further, but that's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Geraci. Any other discussion? We have a motion by Mr. Bonzel, second by Mr. Braden, to have the first and second reading. Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. May we have the first and second reading, Mrs. Williams.
Ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Norwood, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Norwood, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Moving on to item L2, ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances to Norwood, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Bonzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that we have the first and second readings of this ordinance.
Motion by Mr. Bonzel to have the first and second readings. May I have a second? Mr. DiNardo.
Yes, please.
Second by Mr. DiNardo. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye. The motion passes. May we have first and second reading?
Ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Norwood, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Norwood, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Moving on to item L3, ordinance recognizing the historic nature of Victory Park and Market House. Mr. Geraci.
I'd like to make a motion to have all 3 readings of this tonight, please.
Motion by Mr. Geraci to have all 3 readings. May I have a second? Mr. Kelch.
I'd like to second.
Any discussion? Mr. Bonzel?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just be curious if the mayor has seen this ordinance and if he had any comments on it.
I saw this.
Okay, I'm asking if the mayor has any comments on the ordinance.
I came in to this meeting a little bit late, and it was sitting here. I was very surprised because it wasn't in my council packet, and I'd heard that there was something, and I actually looked at my council packet to see if it was there because I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that I'm dead set against this ordinance. This gives the decision-making on what happens with city property to a select group of people or an organization, which we went through this before. I think it was actually a council meeting 2 years ago or so where there was a select group that wanted to take over and control city property. And there were council members that were dead set against that because they said, that's really falls under city council's purview. We wouldn't give that up to any civic organization in this manner. And that's exactly what this is. And I respect the veterans just as much as everybody else here. but I would not give up what we can do at city parks as to the American Legion post in the city of Norwood. That's what council members are elected to do. That's what the administration is elected to do. And those decisions need to be made on that level. So I can't say strongly enough that I'm dead set against this. I wouldn't give this right to the Norwood Moose. I wouldn't give this to the Norwood Eagles. I wouldn't give this right to the Catholic Church in the city. I wouldn't give this to any organization because this is city property. And there are controls and constraints in place to control what happens at city properties. We do not need a group in the city telling us we can't do something or we shouldn't do something or we have to have it approved by them. So with all due respect to every veteran and every service member, I will guarantee you, I'm not an advocate for moving any of the monuments at Victory Park. I'm not an advocate for I haven't seen, I guess people know, because whatever plans maybe council members have seen, or the law director, or somebody at City Hall has seen, as the mayor, I haven't seen any plans. I've seen 0 plans on how they're going to try to move the tank, which as a child, I watched them back that tank up into place. And it was a big event for me. It was incredible to see. So I'm not looking forward to anybody trying to change the memorial and the memorials that are at Victory Park. In my tenure, in my time as mayor, that's not going to happen. This doesn't need to be here. This is not necessary. I wouldn't give this authority to any organization in the city, and that's why I'm dead set against an ordinance like this. No disrespect meant to any veteran. And I know there are veterans on council and there are veterans here, and I applaud and appreciate everything that you've done. But trust me, as the mayor, we're not moving memorials that have been there for years. It would be like going in City Hall and saying, hey, we're going to take all the plaques that are around City Hall down for some reason so we can paint the walls, and we'd never put them back up. That's absolutely ridiculous. Not going to happen. I value the history of this city, and part of the history of this city is Victory Park. One of the biggest parts is Victory Park and the Memorial Day celebration and all the things that go on there that are good for the veterans. But I wouldn't agree to turning over the decision-making for that park to any group like that. That's what we have city council for. That's what we have a city administration for.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else? Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, two parts. Can you explain exactly just tell us, maybe if this is for you, Mr. Moore, exactly what does this change? And also, I don't see a cover letter. Maybe there is
on the
one.
last sheet. It's on the back.
Who brought this to us? Mr. Geraci, I guess. So
absolutely.
What's this change exactly, please?
Can I answer that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Well, in Section 3, it says, prior to issuing any grants or granting any permits, reservations, licenses, or leases regarding Victory Park, that the Safety Service Director shall notify the Victory Park Veterans Association and American Legion Post any objection, concerns, or comments, or any proposed use received with the reasonable time frame duly considered before issuing permits. So we're supposed to go in this, what we're supposed to do is go to an outside organization. Anytime somebody puts a permit in, go to an outside organization and ask them, is that okay with you? And that's not how it works. If there's problems with that permit, we have procedures. We have the Ohio Revised Code that we live and die by. You know, we're a statutory city, but the Safety Service Director has authority to make decisions, and it comes from council. It comes from the Ohio Revised Code. So this is giving a group, and who is that group? It could be the right person today, but it could be the wrong person tomorrow. So, you know, that's my concern with this. Thank you. There's no reason to give that away.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Geraci.
I'm going to turn my time over finally, since I'm way in the back here and I can't be seen, to actually address the ordinance that myself and Mr. Kelch had worked on for the last 3 weeks, to provide a better vision of what this is, okay? Just like any residents, just like anybody else, you happen to hear wind of it coming up, but you never called anybody about it. Residents they hear wind of things, but they don't call anybody about it, and then they have an issue with it. So I will turn it over to Chris and let him explain a little bit of it, being a veteran himself.
Mr. Kels, you want to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So I just want to be clear. I mean, this is something we did work on. We have been talking about for a while. And Mr. Moore himself has worked both with Matt and myself on this, especially over the past weekend. And I've shared my appreciation with Mr. Moore and Mr. Gary for doing so. This is something ideally we want to try to do before Memorial Day, but weren't able to get it done. But what this is doing, and this is something that me and Mr. Moore did talk about, was handing decision-making power over to any special group or anything like that, which Mr. Moore said, don't know if we can, don't know if we want to. So I said, okay, yes, I agree. So what Section 3 actually says is the city, by building that relationship and submitting that relationship with them, will reach out to the Veterans Association and the American Legion Post 123 here in Norwood and say, hey, we got such and such event, wants to go there. What do you guys think? The city's still the deciding factor by the SSD making that call, overriding anything that maybe they say, hey, we don't like such event, but the Safety Service Director, administration deems, hey, we like the event, we want to have it, so we're going to have it. It's just opening that door, creating that relationship, and having that relationship going forward. Section 3 is handing over zero power to them. We're just including them in the discussions in events that happen at this park, okay? Section 2 does give them a little power, and I appreciate that the mayor is saying he doesn't want these monuments going anywhere. I don't either. As I believe the only veteran sitting at this horseshoe setup, I don't want those monuments to go anywhere either. And though I do appreciate Mayor Schneider saying so firmly he doesn't want them, and I really, honestly, really appreciate that, the next mayor might not say the same thing. He might not feel that way. He or she might not enjoy the monuments, might not want there to be any sort of monuments there. And that could pose a problem down the road. So what we're doing here in Section 2 is, it says, in recognition of their past contributions and in exchange for the continuing maintenance work, the City of Norwood shall not, without the prior approval of the Victory Park Veterans Association and American Legion Post 123, remove, modify, or relocate the following features and the area immediately surrounding them. And Mr. Moore, it was his idea to list them out specifically, is what these Section 2 covers. The Wall of Remembrance, the Pathway of Freedom, the POW MIA Memorial Monument Cannon, U.S. Army Battle Tank and its enclosure. Those are the only items in that Section 2 that would not be able to be touched, removed, modified without the sign-off of these two groups. To me, as a veteran, I think that is very generous of our city, and I think it's a generosity that we should show, being the group that has in the past maintained that area, have been dedicated to that area. And I want to thank Master Sergeant Retired Jesse for coming up and speaking. I didn't know he would be here today, and I would just like to say this park, these monuments, these memorials are for a lot of people the last goodbye to those who have given the last full measure to ensure the safety and the rights of our nation. And if giving this little two-sentence thing to save these monuments for the foreseeable future Norwood is something that we have to do, I think that's what we do. So I wanted to clear that up, that we are not giving deciding factor for any events there. We're simply asking their opinion, and we are giving them deciding factor on these monuments that they have vested interest in. Just to clear that.
Thank you, Mr. Kels. Mr. Tracy.
So, as this was brought to my attention about 3 weeks ago, I had started the process of not only this ordinance, but I have been in touch with state representatives as well regarding this park. And I have a pathway that I could take while in discussions to get the park itself as a state historical site also, which would open the door for a little bit more money for us to utilize at that park. So I've not only gone in with Mr. Kelch on this one, but I've taken it a slight step further and gone up to the state as well to discuss this park and to make sure that our veterans are remembered the proper way. Both my grandfathers have bricks up there. I'm sure some on council may have family members who are up there. It's something that we need to do to make sure in the future, as Councilman Kelch said, to preserve these monuments. Because who knows what the next mayor, the next council, the next generation's going to do. We've already seen how the generation currently is affecting a lot of things. So we want to try and create a little cushion of protection here. That's all this is doing.
Thank you, Mr. Geraci. Anyone else? Mr. Thompson.
I have a few general questions and maybe comments. I guess first comment, being that I serve on the Parks Committee with both of you, and this is obviously about Central Park and Norwood, I would have liked to have seen this go through Parks Committee. Seems like the kind of thing we could have a healthy discussion with about there. Let's see. Also, I don't believe I'm comfortable having all three readings of this tonight, being that I just saw it tonight for the first time. I'm questioning, like, you said you found out about this 3 weeks ago, Mr. Geraci, or through the chair to Mr. Geraci. Found out about what? Like, I haven't seen any parks plans. I don't know if the mayor indicated he hasn't seen any parks plan. There have been no plans brought to the Parks Committee, yet you spent 3 weeks crafting an ordinance to solve a problem that as such doesn't exist. I'm in the book that I don't want to see any of these things go either. I never would. But it seems odd to me to hand jurisdiction over this property that's part of city property off to an outside group. I actually agree with the mayor on that. To me, I can understand Section 2. I understand the desire there to protect those monuments. I'm really confused why we'd want to run whatever permits might be used in the park by these groups. I mean, the park is very big and has a lot of space, and it seems like a bottleneck that doesn't need to happen. I would like to have seen this go through Parks Committee. I think we could have potentially improved it or turned it into a resolution rather than an ordinance. But right now, I have trouble supporting it the way that it's written. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Any further discussion? Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple comments. I just, before we, my father was a Marine, Semper Fi. I respect him very much. My grandfather served in the Coast Guard. I have his flag folded up in my den. Served on a ship. The name eludes me. In my opinion, I remember, if I can remember, something like this came up. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we actually made, there was a committee made of veterans that was in charge of that historical site. And maybe that's still, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a committee that we went through and formed to make decisions on that historical site. So I remember that as being true. I'm not interested in giving up any type of, with all due respect, I will stand and I will salute and I will give you the respect, but we don't give up our, this is our city, this is our park, and I believe that every person will respect the memorial as we do today. And I don't see any issues with that. We wouldn't give up our rights to Norwood now or whoever to rent the safety lane or whatever. We remember it was against that. So I don't see any difference there, with the other than the respect factor for our veterans and things. So Those are my comments. I don't, 2 readings, I don't have any problem with 2 readings while we mull over this, but I don't think we should push this through. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braid. Mr. DiNardo.
Yeah, it sounds like we'll struggle to get 4 anyway. I think I'd ask you guys consider 2 readings. I'll have to vote no if it's 3. I'd want to talk maybe to a few of you, maybe to the law department a little bit more about section 2, but I understand the intent, and I think I'm in support of it, section 2. I just wanted to mull on that a little bit more. Section 3 is actually the one when I read it that felt a little bit weird, and I think you bottleneck's the right word. I was more surprised by section 3, and I think it's probably less important because I don't think it's doing the intended service as much as section 2. Section 2 is about protection and making sure that the people most impacted by it have a say, or at least that seems to be why you guys drafted it. So if we have 2 readings, then we can focus a little bit more about section 2, which is probably the really meaty one. And I'd probably suggest, if we had another discussion, section 3 seems like it might do more harm than good. Such as if you guys can consider.
I'm a section 2 guy.
Okay, cool. Either way, I'm just saying that we might struggle for 4 votes. It might be easier if we just have 2 readings and give us the time to have those chats.
Thank you, Mr. DiNardo. Mr. Geraci.
So while this did come up tonight, it was submitted on Wednesday at the deadline. However, there were changes that were being made over the weekend. That's why it was put on here. Second, I think everybody's getting hung up on the version that the mayor has portrayed, that we're giving up power to a certain organization. What Mr. Braden was speaking of is the Veterans Association. Okay? That is what's in here. That is what Mr. Braden is speaking of. We are not giving up anything to the Veterans Association. We are including them. How many times have we heard residents come into us at council meetings and say, inclusion, inclusion, inclusion. Let's include the community. Let's include the members. Let's include these groups. Let's not just include one specific group in everything. I'm trying to bridge the gap within the city. I'm trying to include everybody. I'm trying to include groups as much as I can. We can't just include 1, 2, 3 groups. We need to include as many as we can. This isn't giving them the decision. This is keeping them in the loop. That's what that section 3 is keep them in the loop so that they know what's going on. They go up and they clean this park. They go up and they get it set up for Memorial Day presentations. They go up and clean the marble that's up there. They go up and repaint the tank, clean the tank, prep the tank. Everything that has to do with the bricks, they go up there and do it. We're not asking them to take control of the park. We're asking for them to be included. That's where we're at. We're not giving up control to them. They understood that. I had many conversations with them. We're not giving up control to them. We're including them.
Thank you, Mr. Geraci. Mr. Bonzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. So first, I just want to say I very much appreciate all of the work that the veterans do. And I specifically want to call out Susie Hinneke and David Wolf. I mean, those two have been massive ambassadors for the memorial. They do a ton of work for around the park. And unfortunately, we're going to be losing them soon because they're going to be moving. And I'm happy that for them because they're going to be in a good place. But
I would still always be part of the park team.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. Okay, thank you, Sue. I appreciate that. But I'm glad to hear that she'd still be involved. So, but anyways, so much respect for all of the work they do, and you know, it's very much appreciated. I do agree though that there are some concerns with this ordinance. I would just say. Section 3, I don't really know why it's necessary, because I think if there are issues with events, I think that, you know, we just address them, like, so we can have some communication. But it does seem like an unnecessary bottleneck. Section 2, I would almost recommend changing that. Instead of having the prior approval, I would almost add potentially that a public hearing has to happen, or that requires a 30-day notice, or and then a city council will have to approve, and you could even put a supermajority of city council to approve that. I personally think that would better protect the monuments, especially having that supermajority of council, and it ensures that, you know, the eyes are on it with the public hearing. So, But either way, I do think that getting this tonight, I mean, somebody messaged me today and I was like, no, these are just rumors. There's nothing going on tonight. I had no clue that we'd have an ordinance on the agenda tonight that had anything to do with Victory Park. And I feel like I lied to somebody because they came up to me and asked me about it. So I would actually like to see this potentially go to a committee so that we can talk about this further and talk about some other ramifications, and also see if we can bridge some of the gaps with the city administration as well. But if this were a resolution, as Mr. Thompson has stated, I mean, the whereas clauses, it's beautiful. I mean, like, it expresses everything that I would love to, express. But it does more, though, than, and I think that even the wording of the ordinance, the caption is actually misleading because it does a lot more than just recognize the historical nature of Victory Park and the Market House. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonzo. Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to make a couple comments. Mr. Geraci did submit a request on last Wednesday, and I just want to mention or describe again the way the law department works. If we get a request from a department head, from an elected official, which includes all of the council members, we get a request for an ordinance, we really do our best. To the extent that there may be times where there's research involved, there may be times where, actually there have been times, and there are some council members here who can attest to this, where we've just said, no, you can't do that, that's not allowed. And sometimes it's a combination. So our goal is to, we don't get a vote, we don't express an opinion on whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, generally. We try not to anyway. But we do try to go as far as we can within the bounds of the law to put an ordinance or resolution in front of council that expresses the intent of the person requesting it. And this one took a little while to do, and so we didn't have it. I went back and forth with Mr. Geraci, and then went back and forth with Mr. Kels, and I got something that I think will work. So that's just the process. That's why it took so long, and my apologies there. And I just wanted to say, in regards to Mr. Geraci's comment about declaring the park a historical site, and I understand it is a historical site, and saying this is a nice thing, but if the goal is to get state funding or federal funding or funding from somebody else, or to get on a list or something, I cannot speak today as to whether or not these are the magic words to do it, or what the magic word effect of these words might be. Because I don't know what the programs are, and I don't know what they require, because they're all a little different. So, like, to become a tree city, we've got some weird ordinances in there that were all about the city wants to be a tree city, because you had to have those. So it's that kind of thing, and I just don't know what those are. I just want to make clear that whatever that language is, if we're going to be applying for state money, we may have to come back and redo that to get the right language for whatever that program is.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Gabbard.
I greatly appreciate the fact that I think we're all on board on the fact that we want to keep and maintain our Victory Park. That's sacred ground for every Norwood resident from the beginning of Norwood until today. But I think if by just getting this tonight, and as much discussion as we've already had here with questions and concerns, I don't think we're ready tonight. I agree that with Mr. Bonzo, I think that we could probably make this stronger, whether it's an ordinance or a resolution, as far as Section 2, and making sure that no future councils, no future administrations could be goofy and want to move our memorials, because I would stand with our veterans at the front of that line, and they'd have to come through us to do it. Section 3, I think is kind of like, hey, we're, we want to include them, and I appreciate that we want to include them. The fact that right there at the very bottom where it says that any objection, concerns would go to the Safety Service Director, and they shall be duly considered. So, I like that part of that. I don't know about the rest of it. With that all being said, I would like to make a motion, I think that I can, to place this into the Parks Committee so there can be better conversation on this, meet with some of the other groups, get more input, but to make this the most sound ordinance that we've ever produced on this council, just to make sure that nothing in the future could ever cause movement of our sacred monuments. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we place this in the Parks Committee.
Motion by Mr. Gabbard to place in the Parks Committee. Mr. Braden?
Second.
Point of order.
I was going straight to Mr. Moore.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we've already got a motion to have 3 readings
Exactly.
on the floor.
I was going to ask Mr. Moore which one supersedes.
I do think, though,
Councilman
council,
Bonzel looked it up, so he
Yeah,
knows the rules we got.
It says,
assistant law director.
yeah. It says procedural motions are in order while a substantive motion is pending and at other times except as otherwise noted. And then it lists all of the procedural motions that we can make, and one of the procedural motions, motion 12, is to refer a motion to a committee. So,
Does that supersede the other?
Yeah.
it does, yes.
Okay. Well, then the motion on the floor is by Mr. Gabbard, second by Mr. Braden, to refer this to the Parks Committee. Anything else? Discussion? Mr. Kderanard.
We got a Parks Committee meeting tomorrow. I don't know if that's enough time to put it on there. I think it is.
Unfortunately not, it's going to be 24 hours.
Yeah, so.
We'd have to stay to the next one, but.
What's on the agenda?
Which means it's a month away.
Well, nothing's going to happen, I'm sorry.
Mr. Gabbard.
Nothing's going to happen with this or our sacred park in a month. You know, with all due respect, we're going to get this. We will make sure that this happens. It may not happen tomorrow night. It may be next month. But just because it doesn't happen tonight doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Gabbard. Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I find it a little ironic that we're talking about, first of all, I don't want to disrespect. I'm with you, Mr. Gabbard. I will stand in that front row. We're not messing with no memorials here in Norwood. I can guarantee you that, not while we're in office. But this week, we're screaming inclusion, and 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, we had a group in here and we damn near run them out of town, man. I mean, you know, a couple of us. So, like, now we're going to include people. We want to include everybody now, but 2 weeks ago we were running them out of town. We wouldn't include them, did we? So I mean, it's a little ironic, and it's kind of I don't know, upsets me just a little, but because now we're inclusion. So thank you. That's my comment.
All right.
You know, I don't mean to offend anybody, but it's just kind of upsetting a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Mr. Tracy.
All right. So 2 weeks ago, that's a completely different situation, okay?
Of course.
Completely different situation. So you're comparing apples and oranges here, okay?
You want inclusion or not?
So now,
Mr. Braden,
My
you're out of
apologies,
order.
sir. My apologies.
Mr. Braden, Mr. Tracy.
2 weeks ago, I was not contacted by the business owner, by anybody from the business to speak on what was going on 2 weeks ago. I was contacted by a group, not just the group, but the residents, to be able to protect this based on drawings that they had physically seen in person, removing those monuments and tank. Physically seen. Now, I have some of those residents here tonight in support of this just because they have physically seen this. Okay? Drawings, renderings, anything that has been brought up, they've seen. I have no reason to doubt that these residents are absolutely off their rocker or lying to me. This is... the reason that this is brought up tonight is that two of the members who absolutely care for that park, more than 100%, are leaving our community right now. However, they will be a part of this park on Memorial Day services. They will make sure that that park is still clean. They will make sure that nothing is desecrated at that park, even though they are leaving our community, okay? The reason I brought this up and tried to get it done as quickly as I could was so that they could have something when they were here to know that it's being protected. Not to sit out there and watch it 2, 3, 4 months down the road get passed while they're not here. This is out of respect for for everything that they have done for that park. And with them leaving in less than 12 days, you know, I had to come up with something, and I couldn't come up with something for the last meeting. So when I get a call from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't even know how many at this point, residents saying that they've seen these renderings of these monuments gone because somebody wants these monuments out of here, it disheartens me. And I had to do something. I had to do it quick, and I needed to help those out that have helped our community and stood behind our community for the longest time. I've been told my delivery sucks, and I absolutely agree it sucks. This is absolutely emotional to me because for people to see renderings of those memorials and that tank gone is absolutely incredibly. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy. Mr. Gabbard.
Mr. Tracy, I can totally appreciate what you're saying, and it is an emotional subject. And the work that the Wolves and the American Legion and all those do is unmeasurable. Unmeasurable. We're not taking anything away from that. And I totally get, it would have been nice to be able to make sure that when they leave town, they leave with a solid heart and feel that everything's going to be taken care of. And it will. Believe me, it will. Trust me, it will. I've not seen any of these renderings. I don't know where they're coming from. I would love to see them because I'd like to go after whoever put these renderings together. And two, nothing can happen, regardless of where the grant came from, where the plans came from, where anything come from. We, as this body here, would have to vote on anything, whether it's repaving Montgomery Road, if it's redoing the steps to Victory Park. We would have to approve of that. So it would still have to come through us, and we would be able to shut anything down, especially any changes like that. So if there are renderings out there, I would like to see them.
Thanks, Mr. Gabbard. Mr. Braden.
Thank you. Last comment, Mr. President. Thank you again. I would also like to see those renderings. Why don't we have those tonight? If we're voting on it, if there's renderings out there, I don't know why they're not in front of us. In my opinion, it's just some more examples of government overreach. Like you said, Mr. Gabbard.
Yeah, okay.
It would have to come through us, so why take that power away from us? Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Anyone else? Motion on the floor by Mr. Gabbard, second by Mr. Braden, is to move this to the Parks Committee. Mrs. Williams, please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Abstain.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Point of order.
Yeah.
Do we have to have a reason for abstain? No, you can just abstain on anything? You don't have to exercise or what our responsibility is to sit here and vote? Wow. Wow.
Please continue, Mrs. Williams.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present, we have 6 ayes, 1 abstaining. Motion passes. Moving on to item M, administrative reports. Mayor Schneider.
Thank you. I'm glad to report that our street repaving project up on the north end is moving along. I don't know how many of you have driven up there, Councilman Tom. I'm sure you've driven once or twice. But it is moving along, and it looks pretty darn good. It's going to be interesting to see the final product. Robertson Avenue and Forest Avenue, that process has started repaving in those areas. Down on this end. Heritage Park, right next to City Hall. Heritage Park is being worked on right now, getting an upgrade, much needed. It's needed it for quite a while. There will be some seating in there, and that was all CDBG, Community Development Block Grant money that was used for that. The clock that's in there will stay in position. The flagpoles will stay in position, but we'll have some seating for the restaurants as they get cranking back up. Public Works, as you know, is extremely active. I wrote active 3 times, but I don't want to say active 3 times, so I just wrote it 3 times, the word active. So there, I said it 3 times. Public Works is busy, and they've got their seasonal people working, and they're out in the parks, and they're trying to keep everything in good shape. A little bit of help goes a long way, so do a good deed daily if you're in the parks, and whatever you carry in garbage-wise, if you can carry that back out, that is helpful. What I have seen in Millcrest Park, I was just in Millcrest Park last week, Lower Millcrest, and it was packed. There were people all over the place. There are parties going on, there's soccer going on, there's all sorts of activities. There was actually a small birthday party going on, celebration. I think the child was like 7 or 8 years old, and they had a huge amount of kids down there and their family. And it looked like a great party. I wasn't invited, but maybe next time I'll get invited. But that you can rent out the Norwood Parks, and Norwood Parks can be rented out by contacting the Recreation Department. If you're a Norwood resident, contact them, and they'll reserve a park. There's a couple of parks that are just perfect for high school graduations or birthday parties and different things like that. So contact the Recreation Department for that. I do want to talk about hiring. We need more candidates. We need more candidates for fire as firefighters, and we need more candidates as police officers. Right now, we've got the list posted up there, but we're not doing great as we have in years past. We've had a lot of candidates. This time we are not. It's one of the things that you've been looking at is removing the fee to sit for the civil service testing, which, if we're going to use some words that have been used here, inclusive, you can look at that as an exclusive act. If you don't have money to sit for the fire test or the police test because you can't pay that fee to sit down, isn't that holding people back from actually applying? So I still feel strongly we need to repeal that and get rid of the application fees and broaden the pool of candidates. And some of them might not be high income or middle income, they might be low income, that the fees are a challenge for them. I think that if they talk to the Safety or the Civil Service Commission, they'll waive those fees, but it's potentially stopping people who would apply from the get-go from applying. So nobody wants to have to go up to a person and say, hey man, I don't have enough money to sit for the test. Can I sit anyways? So I think there's a reason to go ahead and do the final. I know I think you did 2 readings now. Hopefully the final reading will be next time. And
yeah, we passed it.
Excuse me?
We passed it today.
You passed it? Okay, well then great. That's good, because hopefully we'll have more candidates showing up. But it is tough right now. Police candidates, it's a tough job to do, and people recognize it, and we don't have as many candidates as we have in years past. And it's not just the city of Norwood, it's every municipality, which means that the best candidates are going to potentially be going to bigger cities that can pay more money or richer cities than Norwood. So we've really got to try to keep our candidate pool open. That's an important part. And I know there's been a ton of discussion on Victory Park, and there are Friday nights on the lawn at Victory Park. One of the best things about the event, and I watched it this last Friday while I was there. There was a good group of people there. They were enjoying Victory Park. They were also respectful of the monuments, and there were people that were looking at the plaques, and there were people in that park that were looking at paver stones and finding their grandparent or their dad who has a stone up there the veterans put up there. So we're bringing people back into the park, and I think that's great, and I think we should. And I don't think that the American Legion Post or the Victory Park veterans are saying we're trying to stop people from going to the park. I think what they are doing is saying, around the country, veterans memorials and things have been under attack, and we need to get out ahead of this. And I don't disagree with that. there are a lot of groups in other cities and other states around the nation that are having challenges like this. In the city of Norwood, with me as the mayor, that's not a challenge I'm willing to go. I will be the one that's standing there fighting them before they try to move that tank, before they try to take down that marble wall. I don't think we need to pass an ordinance to save something that's been there for 70 years. It's not going to be moved under my watch. I'm going to do everything I can to stop it. And I'm like everybody else. Well, I don't know. Some people, I guess, have seen renderings of what somebody is proposing. I have not seen that, and I wouldn't be an advocate for it. So maybe that's the fact is I've made it clear. I'm not an advocate for any type of movement of the memorials in there, and maybe they haven't showed it to me because they want it to happen some other way. But I'm not sure how you make that happen in a strong mayor city like this. But, you know, whoever they are can, I guess, keep feeding things out there, and maybe they'll get a groundswell of, I don't know, council members who will totally change their mind. I don't see that either. So that's an important aspect of it. You know, there's a lot going on. There are a lot of improvements being made in the city. We're moving forward with Montgomery Road. We've grinded down a lot of the bad areas, patches in Montgomery Road, and we're trying to get paint, you know, fresh traffic marking paint placed on all the white areas, all the lines and the turn indicators and things like that. We're also working on some improvements to the traffic light timing. So we're doing a lot. We're making a lot of progress. There's still a lot to be made, and there are still a lot of things that are going to continue to take a while to get ahead of. But we're moving in the right direction, and I appreciate all the budget that you guys put in place. We're doing our best to make things happen according to the budget and according to the financial recovery plan that's in place. It's a heavy lift, but we've got good people at City Hall that are working on it. So feel free to communicate with me. My email's out there also, and I know you guys have said it many a times, but you can go to the city's Facebook or city's website, and my email is out there, mayor@norwoodohio.gov, and all the council members' email are posted on there also. And I think all of you guys have done a great job at communicating with people when they communicate with you. So it is a two-way street, and we're open to communication, but you know, it does take two to tango. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Tracy.
I disagree with your last comment there, because I've reached out to you several times, and I get nothing out of you. So you don't want to work with me. You don't want to look for a compromise. And you know, it's kind of.
Can I comment on that?
Let him finish.
Oh,
go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
I would say that anybody who says that, especially you, is a bold-faced liar.
Okay.
Factual.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, factual then. You are a bold-faced liar as well.
Okay.
Gentlemen, that's enough. We're done with that. We're moving on. Thank you. Anyone else have a question for the mayor? Mr. Kelch.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could, through the chair of the mayor, is there any current updates on the Elm Avenue stuff? I know you went to the community council members meeting and spoke with them. We had a meeting here that night, which I do appreciate you doing, because the residents there, talking to someone, were very and highly anticipating you coming to speak. I just didn't know if there was anything since then that we could put out, maybe.
Mr. Mayor.
No, there's no update on that. I am meeting with engineering, JMA, to talk about streets and our street program, and that's something that will be brought up at that time too.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else have any questions? Mr. Kelch?
If I could just follow up, when we first met last January, we approved the engineer study to look into Elm Avenue's flooding in that. Do we have those results yet that we can share with the residents maybe?
Mr. Mayor?
We do have some information. Is there a complete engineering study that's available to share? I will have to look at that. I know that they completed an engineering study, but then we changed the scope of it when we said we were going to try to move the detention area. So I'm not sure if it's inclusive of that. So, but I can look at that and email that to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Moore, I would like to ask if you could comment, please, on House Bill 157 and Senate Bill 97, which is the Ohio Senate amending the budget bill to include retroactive change to temporary municipal income tax withholding policy. I think I sent you an email to give you a little heads up on that. If you could maybe address that for us, please.
Okay, I'm assuming you don't want my editorial comments on the way the state treats cities. Instead, basically, when COVID hit and economies were shut down and workers were staying at home, the state passed a law that said for cities that have an earnings tax and an income tax, if you go and work in a city like Cincinnati, you work for a company there, they withhold money from your check and send it to the city of Cincinnati on your behalf. And they do it for the people that work in the city. And Norwood does the same thing. The employers in Norwood, they withhold from their employees that work in the city and send it to the city on their behalf. And then that's what you can take off when you file, if you file an earnings tax or file a tax return for the city. They passed a law that said, okay, you still keep withholding and paying to the cities those taxes, those earnings taxes, even if those employees are no longer coming to your office in that location. And the assumption was, I think for all of us, that meant that then the cities will continue to will actually get that revenue as if those employees were actually coming to work in the cities. Well, they passed a law now, that the House and the Senate have passed versions of it that will allow people to file for refunds, and not just for refunds for 2021, but also for 2020, which means that if someone lives outside of Norwood, but usually works in Norwood, but didn't come to work in Norwood during the COVID kind of period, that they can file a refund for their taxes, for the taxes that were paid to Norwood. So that could conceivably have a large impact, but it also conceivably might not have a huge impact because I'm not sure that the treasurer might be able to pull those numbers. How many of the people that this might affect, the people that work in Norwood but don't live here and were not coming to work over the last 18 months, how many of them live in a city that doesn't have an earnings tax? So if you live in Cincinnati and you come and work in Norwood, the Norwood withholding is 2% and Cincinnati's 2.1%. And other communities have different percentages. There are places that have none, and those people might file refunds, and I want to get my $1,000, I want to get my $2,000 or my $2,500 back that was withheld and paid to Norwood. So it could have an impact. I don't know what it could be, but the bulk of our income, the bulk of the city's revenue comes from exactly those taxes. It comes from the 2% earnings tax that's paid on the wages of the people that live or that work in the city. And most of those people don't live in the city. So it could have a big impact, but I think we'd have to defer to the treasurer to see how many potentially people are outside of the city. It's a lot are not in Cincinnati, have zip codes that are not in Cincinnati. But that's basically the impact. So again, well, we don't know. So just like everything else in the last 18 months, we're not really sure, but it could be a problem. Does that help?
That helps. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moore. I just wanted council to be aware. Moving on to item N, unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business this evening? Then we'll move on to new business. Any new business tonight? Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, at a special council meeting recently, we had Chief Kramer come in to talk about the need for new body cams for our police officers. Currently, they have not great storage for the video, and also not enough cams to go on all of our officers. Chief Kramer has worked with the law department to put together an ordinance to enter into contract to purchase these things, but again, it's of a dollar amount that's different than what is in the budget. So I am putting the body cams issue into Finance Committee in the hopes that Finance Committee can move dollars around to ensure that our police officers have operating body cams.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Any other new business? Okay. Mr. Kelch.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, I just wanted to put it out there that we do have a Parks and Recreation Public Spaces Committee meeting tomorrow night here at 7:30 for those that would like to attend.
Thank you, Mr. Kelch. Anything else?
Oh, yeah, I do have another item if we could. I know we have a pretty big June committee of the whole meeting coming up, but if we could in July, I would like to submit to the committee of the whole just a sit-down discussion on racial equity in Norwood and find out ways that we can work forward in that and create a more inclusive environment here where people don't feel maybe that, they're looked at a type of way, treated a type of way, and that we can kind of go down that road together.
Thank you, Mr. Kelch. Mr. Tracy.
I really did promise myself I was not going to say anything at this moment. However, Mr. Mayor had stated that we have I don't even know what it is, the movie in the park or whatever it is. However, it appears that it is sponsored by a group, and I do remember several months back we had a group that wanted to do the same exact thing and seemed to hit roadblocks. I'm with Chris. I agree we need to start having better conversation because yes, I did bring up inclusion earlier and yes, I happened to see the sponsorship of this park event and I don't even know if I have words to describe at that moment what I was feeling. I'm just, and I guess I'll go out and say this, that Pastor James and I, we've gone toe-to-toe before. We've literally gone toe-to-toe, forehead to forehead. And while there were a lot of statements earlier tonight to not judge people, persons, and while it may have been inadvertent, us getting judged ourselves with some of the comments, and I appreciate the comments, and I appreciate everybody coming out here. And I hope that you guys would stay. I know we do have a longer meeting even past this point, so I'll make it quick, so that we can discuss some of these things. Because I came here for all three meetings that we had for all three votes. I rushed here. They held the meeting up for me to get here for one meeting because I was coming from 45, 50 minutes away to get here. The permit was on the table 4 weeks ago. We had one vote, and before that, before we even had that one vote, it was discussed at a prior council meeting to that. It's not that we don't want to be heard, but again, I personally myself only heard from residents. I had no clue who even owned Stonies, to be honest. I had no clue who it was. I just heard and saw some evidence of what was occurring down there. However, because I did only have one side, and a lot of people know me, I'm looking at both sides every single time. I only had the one side to go off. So, while it may be beyond the vote, I still want to discuss and talk about it as a councilman. Absolutely. I was going to say this earlier, but Mr. Gabbard had me wait until new business. So I'm glad you stuck around. Hopefully you stick around a little longer. I know it's late and I've got my daughter here, so I'm still willing to discuss for a little bit and maybe we can set something up for another date. But
do you have any new business, Mr. Tracy?
I don't.
Anyone else? Mr. Gabbard?
Yeah, excuse me. Speaking with the law department, sorry. Health department. Wanted me to just put out a reminder again. I spoke about this a couple months ago. Rumpke, our pickups, you're not supposed to put your garbage out until after like 5 o'clock. And make sure you pull your cans back in the next day, and they're not out there for several days. But if you have large items or an extra large type of set out, if you give the Rumpke a call, and their number's on their website, it's a pretty easy website to maneuver through, but if you give them a call and give them a heads up, that way they can make sure they can get all that. So if you have extra, an extra large set out where there's lots of stuff, maybe it's a landlord evicting someone or something like that, just give them a call so they can be prepared for it. And that way we don't have garbage sitting out at the curbs for, a week at a time. But just a friendly reminder, just for people that if you have any questions about what you're allowed to set out, what you're not, should be all on the website, and go check that out.
Thank you, Mr. Gabbard. Mr. Braden, did you have your hand up?
I did. Thank you, Mr. President. I have a comment about Stoney's too, and I appreciate you guys staying around. Ma'am, we've met quite a few times, and during your speech up there, you said that you were here before Stoney's had opened, and I met you prior to Stoney's opening, and since you've opened, I've been there. I've visited your establishment several times, and we've had the conversations, and they've been very enjoyable. And I've really enjoyed coming to your establishment, and everything you've said tonight, and all your friends are in my opinion, have been very, very truthful. So we do have, however, we have had complaints, and over the years now, I don't know how, it's been a couple of years, right? You've been open, so we saw some evidence, and we had to vote on that based on the video that was showed, and prior to that. So my point is, we voted for a hearing. If we voted to shut you down, ma'am, that was not, I would have voted no for that. So it is not my wish to do that, but the residents would like to see a hearing, and we just basically agreed with them, and we'll put a hearing together, or the state will. We won't do anything. The state will. So you'll have your opportunity, and it's my experience, and I do have some experience with the Ohio Liquor Control, and it's very difficult. I don't believe they're going to take your license, and that's what they'd have to do. So I want to say to you that I enjoy your establishment. I enjoy my music loud. So I wanted to let you know that. And also, and I'll make this my final statement, I believe in second chances, and if you believe me, I was a young person, and I did things I'm not proud of, and I am a reformed, and I believe that doesn't matter what you've done. What are you doing now? And I want to just say that to you, Mr. I forget your name. I'm sorry, but I'm okay. It doesn't matter what you've done, but what you're doing today. And I want to say that too. And I just appreciate everybody coming. I appreciate you staying and allowing me to have this opportunity to address you. Thank you,
Mr. Braden. Did you have any new business?
I do not. Thank you.
Any other new business? Then we'll move on to communications. Communications P1, Glenda A. Smith. Thank you letter to the City Council. Mrs. Williams.
Letter dated May 24th, 2021 to Norwood City Council regarding thank you. Dear Norwood City Council, thank you for allowing me to speak to you and the citizens of Norwood on February 28th, 2020. Juvenile detention alternative initiatives was the central part of my platform. Although I did not win the primary, in 2020, former Hamilton County Juvenile Court Judge John Williams did win the JDAI Alliance. This is a direct result of you making sure your citizens were informed. We have a victory. In 2010, JDAI came into existence in Ohio and reduced juvenile detention by 70% in Montgomery County, reduces juvenile arrests, ethnic and racial disparity, and racial profiling in policing in counties across the country. JDAI has yet to be realized in Hamilton County. Therefore, we must continue to inform citizens about diverse ideas. Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Thank you for your service and have a blessed week. If you have any questions, you may reach me at the number listed on the letterhead. Very truly yours, Glenda A. Smith.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. Bonzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we receive and file the letter.
Motion by Mr. Bonzel to receive and file. May I have a second? Mr. Thompson.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzel?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Tracy?
Yes.
Mr. Kelsch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye. The motion passes. Moving on to item P2, letter from Ron Murphy.
To Ken Miracle, President, Norwood City Council, from Ron Murphy, ASAP Norwood Coalition member, regarding City Council meeting 5/11/21. Dear President, I am penning this letter as a coalition member of ASAP Norwood, but also as a lifetime resident of the city of Norwood. ASAP Norwood is a grassroots organization operating as a nonprofit comprised of different sectors of the Norwood community. ASAP wants to see the city of Norwood continue to improve and become a shining beacon of light to other communities. Our mission is to activate substance abuse prevention in Norwood. Our focus is education, communication, and connection to our residents, most specifically our youth. In 2019-2020, we partnered with the city to completely revamp and upgrade the basketball courts at Waterworks Park. That renovation all began with a survey conducted by high school students about recreational needs of Norwood youth. Those basketball courts are now a source of pride for the city and are used on a daily basis. More recently, we secured a grant that would assist in the revitalization of the Norwood Park system. Working with the Gem of the Highlands and Norwood together, the first step was to complete a Norwood Parks audit. We hired Rosie Santos to assist with the data analysis of this audit. Ms. Santos attended the Norwood City Council meeting on Tuesday, May 11th, to present the findings of the audit along with her analysis. The treatment Ms. Santos received from two members of council during her presentation is the reason I took the time to draft this letter. Along with Ms. Santos, Mrs. Donna Lake, Leslie Stevenson, and ASAP Norwood were also disparaged. The impetus for this communication is to denounce the behavior of Councilperson Kelsch and Councilperson Geraci. Ms. Santos, Mrs. Lake, Ms. Stevenson, and ASAP Norwood did not deserve to be treated so unprofessionally and with such disdain. The presentation of the audit required that no action was needed by council. There was no vote needed. They simply needed to accept the presentation as a gift and move forward on the agenda that evening. Instead, these two council members chose to embarrass themselves and the city of Norwood. City council members, like any employee of the city of Norwood, need to hold themselves to a higher standard. This is especially when dealing with members of the public. The behavior exhibited that night was unwarranted and should be publicly denounced. Ultimately, an apology would be in order. Lastly, their behavior possibly discouraged other civic-minded persons or groups from appearing before City Council in the future. Thank you for taking the time to read this letter. May God bless the city of Norwood. Ron Murphy.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. Thompson.
Move we receive and file the letter.
Motion by Mr. Thompson to receive and file. Mr. Braden.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonzel.
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard.
Yes.
Mr. Geraci.
Yes.
Mr. Kelsch.
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item P3, letter from Susan Hennica.
Letter dated June 6, 2021, to Norwood City Council. For over 100 years, Victory Park has been established as a memorial to those who served and who gave the last full measure of devotion to this country. Throughout this time, the park has enjoyed support for its cause from veterans, politicians, and residents alike. A few of the notable events to recall. 1958, a marble shaft with a bronze-winged Victory and plaques was dedicated at Victory Park, commemorating Norwood veterans who died during World War I, World War II, and the Korean conflict. 1986, the Norwood Victory Park Veterans Association was formed by Jerry Owen and George Swango. With the closure of GM and Norwood in financial crisis, these men formed the group to show their national and community pride by doing the upkeep of the memorials at the park. This legacy is still carried on to this day by members of the association. 1991, Mayor Joseph Sanker rededicated the monuments as they had been updated to include those who served during Vietnam and to honor those who were currently serving in Operation Desert Shield/Desert Storm. 1993, Mayor Joseph Hochbein was part of the ceremony that added the tank monument along with the Pathway of Freedom. 2018, Mayor Thomas Williams issued a proclamation at the rededication of the tank monument, protecting Victory Park as a memorial park. This ceremony was set up as the Victory Park Veterans Association had teamed up with USA Bot to have badly needed upkeep done on the tank. Victory Park enjoys a long history within Norwood, and the Victory Parks Veterans Association continues to lend its support. Around the tank, there have been 1,249 bricks placed, with another 62 around the POW MIA Memorial. These bricks were purchased through donations by residents who wanted to memorialize loved ones who served from our community and help support further improvements to the park. Many have stated how much pride they feel either driving or stopping by this prominent location and feeling their loved ones are truly being honored. There are additional projects in development stage to further include service members from Operation Iraqi Freedom, Afghanistan, and Operation Enduring Freedom. The Victory Park Veterans Association would like to cast its support for an ordinance proclaiming Victory Park as a historical veterans memorial. We would like to see this park be a place of remembrance for future generations as it has been for us. Thank you for your consideration. Susan Hennecke.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. Gabbard.
Make a motion we receive and file the letter.
Motion by Mr. Gabbard. Mr. Tracy.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tracy. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonsall?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Move on to the last letter, item P4, from Mr. Everett Green.
A letter dated June 2nd, 2021. To Norwood City Council, the American Legion Post 123 Norwood and its members support the Victory Park Veterans Association and its efforts to make Victory Park a historical site. This park is vital to the citizens and veterans of the area. This is a place where veterans and citizens can come to pay tribute to their comrades and family members. This 1.24 acres was donated and dedicated in the early 1900s for this sole purpose. Many citizens of Norwood have made the ultimate sacrifice for the United States of America, and this is where we pay tribute to them. This is not just a park for Norwood, it's a part of the history of this great city. Please consider making Victory Park a historical site and protect our history and the memories of these great patriots. Thank you, Everett Green.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. Gabbard.
Make a motion to receive and file this letter.
Motion by Mr. Gabbard to receive and file. Mr. Kelch.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kelch. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Bonsall?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Before we move on, I had written down for a committee of the whole meeting next Tuesday, 6:15 at 6 p.m. here. We're going to have a Teams call with Civic Clerk. I think I passed that information out to you guys maybe 2 meetings ago.
What time?
6 p.m. I'll get that all set up right here. Thank you.
I'm sorry, you said there was a Teams call? With
Civic
Clerk. Okay.
Mr. Bonsall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will that meeting by chance also include an update on the items still left to get out of the financial, the report on accounting methods items that still need to be addressed?
If you would like me to do that. I think we're meeting with the FRP on the 22nd. We have a meeting then. We can talk about it then or in July.
I would say if you have an update before then, that would be great, but if not, then July's fine.
Noted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, now we're fine. You want anything else?
May I have a motion to go into executive session under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G3 to confer with an attorney concerning a dispute or disputes involving the city or council that are the subject of pending or imminent court action. Mr. Thompson.
Move we go into executive session to discuss pending litigation with all the verbiage that you just stated.
Thank you, sir. Motion by Mr. Thompson. May I have a second? May I have a second? Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Williams, please call the roll.
Mr. Bonsall?
Yes.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yeah.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yep.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present. Motion passes. We're going into executive session.
Yeah, Mr. Merkel, I would just one
We are out of executive session. Moving on to item S, adjournment. Mr. Braden.
Motion to adjourn, please.
Motion by Mr. Braden to adjourn. May I have a second? Mr. DiNardo.
Yes, please.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Bunzel? Yes. Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye. We are adjourned.
I think we did it.